Guys, welcome to the I Love CVille Show. My name is Jerry Miller. Good Tuesday afternoon, and thank you kindly for joining us. A lot we're going to cover on today's program, including a new announcement from the Bodo's Corner location as its staff makes a push to unionize the UVA Corner location for the Bodo's Bagels chain. We'll give you that announcement here. That was just released this morning, roughly 4 hours ago. Staff is asking the community to participate in a showing or a sign of good faith that is pro-union on the UVA corner at Bodo's. We'll let you know what that show of good faith or the ask from staff for community members. I also want to talk about this. Yesterday on the show, we had a really good discussion on Southern Development and Frank Bailiff. Frank Bailiff owns Southern Development. As we were the first to tell you, we learned this from our friend Nancy Gill, the former mayor of Scottsville. Southern and Frank have purchased 37 parcels from Dr. Charles Hurt, a total of 288 acres in the Scottsville area. The sale comprises 30% of Scottsville's land mass. The question I'm going to ask you, Judah, and you viewers and listeners, Frank Bailiff undoubtedly is going to have tremendous influence over the future of Scottsville. 30% of the land mass is now controlled by him. What other individual or small group of people have had similar impacts or influences in this community in shaping the footprint, the feel, or the landscape of a jurisdiction, a corridor, or a neighborhood? I want you to think history-wise. And I don't have a go-to answer for this. So put your comments in the feed. You will shape the discussion here. I'm counting on you, Kevin Yancey, and you, Kevin Higgins, and you, MJ Arquette, and Carol Thorpe, I'm counting on you. And Scott Aaronworth. Kevin Yancey, that's a really good one. He says, Wendell Wood, United Land Company, Wendell Wood. The largest landowner in Albemarle County is Wendell Wood and his company, United Land Company. Kevin Yancey, King of Waynesboro, puts in the feed what Wendell Wood has done in shaping Route 29 North. Compares, in fact, Kevin, I think you're right, man. What Wendell did with Route 29 North will be more significant than what Frank Bailiff will do with these 288 acres around Scottsville. 29 North is a more economically diverse and engaged and more robust and more well-traveled and participated a corridor than the Scottsville area. So that's a very good one. And I would say Wendell Wood, well done, Kevin Yancey. Wendell Wood's contribution to Albemarle County will supersede what Frank's contribution will be to the Scottsville area. Still, Bailiff's contributions and influence significant. So I'm asking you, the viewer and listener, if you missed yesterday's program, this was news first you heard here on the I Love CVille Show. Frank Bailiff buys 37 acres from his professional mentor and Dr. Charles Hurt. 37 parcels, 288 acres total, 30% of Scottsville's land mass, sale price undisclosed, appraised value just under $3 million. Southern Development, Frank Bailiff's company, will have a dramatic influence in shaping Scottsville with 30% of the land mass under his control to develop. So curious Who else locally has had an impact like Bailiff will have in Scottsville? Kevin Yancey adds, not sure of the company, but I know some names I won't mention that developed Old Trail and Crozet. The Bates family, I would imagine is who you're alluding to, Kevin Yancey. The Bates family very much developed and helped shape the vision that is Crozet and Old Trail as we know it today. So I'm asking you, the viewer and listener, we have to highlight the influence that Ludwig Kuttner has had in downtown Charlottesville, and Alan Kajin. Ludwig Kuttner and Alan Kajin, two of the largest property owners in the city of Charlottesville. Downtown Charlottesville, as we know it today, very much shaped by Ludwig Kuttner's influence. Ix Park, Ludwig Kuttner's fingertips and influence all over it. You can make a legitimate argument that Ix Park, that went from a blue-collar employer, Frank Ix and Sons, to now an eclectic shopping center that's home to a three-notch brewery, a sake brewery, an American sake, one of our favorite retail stores in Animal Connection, bike shops and Brazos Tacos, in a co-working space. Ludwig, you have to put on that short list as influencing or shaping the feel or a vision of an area, especially with what he has done with downtown and Ix. I mean, when you put the Costner family on how they've shaped High Street as we know it today. I mean, the Costner family not only owns Costner Brothers Remodeling on High Street, but they own much of the High Street corridor. In fact, that area of land where the food trucks post up at the base of Freebridge, that big empty lot where you see Tacos Gomez and Angelique's and some of the best food trucks out there, that parcel of land is owned by Mr. Costner. And his family rents to these food trucks at a nominal fee. I mean, I've heard it's as low as $20 or $25 a day. It's food truck space for the trucks to post up and sell their tacos and their southern fare and their Mexican cuisine and their sandwiches. So who has shaped a neighborhood or an area or a jurisdiction like Wendellwood has Route 29, like the Costners have High Street, like the Bates family did Old Trail and Crozet, like Ludwig Kuttner has done for Ix Park in downtown Charlottesville, like Wendellwood for Route 29, and like Frank Bailiff soon will for the Scottsville area. I have a bit of news from Bodo's that I wanted to relay to you. One of the hot topics of the show last week was the UVA corner location, and its staff is looking to unionize. This morning, and Judah, I'm curious of your take on these efforts. We've already gotten your take last week. I want to follow up from you. This morning, in fact, we can go to the two-shot now. Bodo's Union now has a Twitter account, Judah.
Oh, good grief.
The Twitter account is at Bodo's Union. So you search Bodo's Union, the handle's at Bodo's Union, you'll find them. They tweet this morning, I'll read it verbatim, 8:09 a.m. Hi everyone, the tweet says. New way to support our union just dropped. We are asking supporters to come to the corner store on Wednesdays wearing a red article of clothing. This is a way to demonstrate to everyone that our customers and community supports our union. We can't wait to see you in your red article of clothing on Wednesday afternoons. Judah, are you going in with a red article of clothing?
Well, I don't normally make it down to the corner very often, so probably not.
Is that a safe way of saying, no, you're not going to be wearing a red article of clothing? In fact, you will be wearing a black article of clothing?
Well, I don't know.
Wearing all black.
All black. What does that signify? The death of the union?
I mean, metaphorically?
If I were to go in, I wouldn't wear red. I don't know that I support. I'd have to, I'd really have to talk to some of those people and find out what it is that they want individually.
You are so adamant about this.
Because
you're so adamant about this. You know it's about money.
Jerry, you are so certain that you are always right that I always have to question, because you just.
What else would they be doing a union for if it was not for money or perks?
I mean, perks is not money.
Perks is money.
Okay, well then, you're basically, okay. See, I don't know why you ask me questions when you're just like...
I'm just curious. I like to hear your responses.
Yes, and my response is that I would still like to talk to someone and find out what it is they think they're going to accomplish. I know you think that all they want is money, but I know there's more than just money involved. Some of these people have to understand that what they're doing could mean the death of Bodos and the loss of their jobs.
Yeah.
They can't all just be blindly following someone who's at the forefront of this saying we need rights.
I'll give you that.
So I would like to talk to somebody that actually is in the middle of this and say, what is it you're expecting? You guys aren't working at McDonald's, or from everything that we've heard, they've already got pretty good pay and pretty good benefits. So that's why I want to hear from someone that's not Jerry Miller what they're expecting to get from this.
Okay.
Because there is...
Well, why don't you do that? You go this week, or you interact with their Twitter account. The Bodos Union Twitter account, 564 followers already. 564 followers. A lot of retweets happening on the Bodos Union Twitter account. They're asking people to go wear red. Judah is not going to wear red tomorrow. He's not necessarily going to wear black tomorrow for the death of the union. Alex Urpí is getting a chuckle out of this in our green room. What he will wear tomorrow is an investigator's magnifying glass. He will hold an investigator's magnifying glass because he wants to get to the bottom of why the staff is unionizing.
So apparently I'm going to need to buy a magnifying glass.
You need a Sherlock Holmes. Is it a brown rain jacket, a magnifying glass, and that little triangular hat that he wears? What is that triangular hat that Sherlock wears?
It's like the front and back hat.
Yeah, it's the front and back hat.
Gray.
It's almost like is it like a Kangol? It's like a Kangol hat.
What do we call it? Let's see.
The front and the back hat is a great description, and it needs to be knit. It needs to be plaid knitted.
It's called a deer stalker.
The hat's called a deer stalker?
It sounds much more sinister than it looks.
Yeah, I know. You wear the deer stalker when you go stalk the union of Bodos on the corner, please. No, seriously, we should figure out what they're going for. I'm on the Twitter account now. We should send a friendly tweet to Bodos. Why is it that you're forming a union? And then why is it you want us to wear red on Wednesdays at the corner location? I would bet the response is...
If you think you'll get
more compensation or benefits of some kind. But you want to hear it from the horse's mouth, and I respect that.
Well, I don't just want to hear what they want. I want to hear how they expect this to, work.
Well, you're saying they better have a plan than just saying we're going to form a union. Because what they're doing could be, as you've aptly put it, and what I also believe as well, could be the start of the closing of a location.
Yeah. If you force I'm not specifically talking about Bodos in this case, but if you force a small business to make concessions of like higher pay and more benefits when they're already strapped and struggling after 2 years of COVID restrictions
and collateral damage,
and BS, and collateral damage, then,
when their rent's already high, they don't own that particular location.
Yeah.
They're already paying staff the highest F&B quick serve restaurant rates in town. They're getting hammered with cost of goods increases, hammered with full fuel and inflation increases, hammered with staff not even showing up to work, where on some days they've had to close on normal business days because they haven't had enough staff to open up the bagel shop. All these are indicators to me that they're just going to shut the show down.
Yeah. So I'm curious. Are these just a bunch of people who don't understand economics and think that they can bully Bodos into paying them $20 an hour, or is there do they have some inside scoop that we don't know of that somehow this is a good move?
I like it. I like everything you just said. Well said, Judah Woodcower, director. We'll give some love to Skooma Boutique Dispensary. The best dispensary in Charlottesville is which dispensary, Judah?
Skooma.
Oh, very good, Judah. You're becoming so talented on the
right around the corner from us.
Skooma Boutique Dispensary with the location on the downtown mall, and of course one on the UVA corner on Elliowood Avenue. And speaking of UVA, Money Magazine, and I can't wait to relay this to Alex Urpí. Money Magazine has ranked UVA the number 3 best value in the nation. Number 1 best value in the nation. Do you have a guess, Judah? Did you read the link already?
No, I haven't. I mean, I looked at it, but I didn't see anything about what you're talking about.
Best
Number
value.
1 best
UVA is number
value.
3. What's number 1? What's number 2? Alex, you can holler from the green room too on this one. Number 1 and number 2. What do you guys got? Viewers and listeners.
I don't know that I have any.
What do you think, Catherine Dabney? What do you think, Kevin Yancey? What's number 1 in America best value according to Money Magazine?
Penn State.
That's a good guess.
I have no way. I know no clue.
It's a tough one. University of Michigan is number 1. Ann Arbor is number 1. Number 2, Money Magazine, is UNC Chapel Hill. UVA is in the 3 slot. Best value school according to Money Magazine. Money Magazine ranks colleges on 24 criteria, so it's a fairly dynamic accolade. I found the last paragraph of this story the most compelling one. The University of Virginia covers full tuition, fees, and room and board for in-state students whose families earn less than $30,000 a year. The university fully covers tuition and fees for students from Virginia families who earn less than $80,000 per year. So if your family earns less than 30 G's a year, you got tuition covered.
Everything.
You get everything
covered,
including room and board.
If you make less than 80,000, then they just get what was it? Tuition and
fees.
Yeah.
No room and board.
That's really good.
Yeah. Right? Less than 80 G's for a household. The UVA is completely covering tuition and fees for students. Yeah. Now, room and board's going to cost thousands of dollars, but that's a pretty good deal there.
And there are grants and other things that you can get to help out with those types of fees.
Right. So number 3, Money Mag, best value school, right here in Charlottesville. The accolades continue for Charlottesville. Just because this accolade is a University of Virginia accolade does not mean it does not positively impact the city of Charlottesville and Central Virginia. More Attention, a national publication ranking UVA number 3 in America for best value. And speaking of community and business and what's good for the community, we talked about how graduation weekend, this coming weekend, is back to its normal format.
Yeah.
We highlighted on yesterday's show that there is no event in Charlottesville or in Central Virginia that has more of a positive impact on the local economy than graduation weekend? That's number one. We were in agreement, number one, by clear cut. Number two,
There's nothing else that draws so many people at one time.
At one time. Number two we said was what?
Distant number two was, what was it? It was
comeback weekend.
Was it what?
Coming back to dorms for the end of summer weekend, when the students come back to school. And then a distant 3 through 10, we said was somewhere between home UVA football games and alumni weekend and spring Foxfields.
Yeah,
but we said one was a clear cut one and two was a clear cut two.
I don't know. I think I put two with the other 8.
You don't think two is sizably more impactful than Foxfields or home football games? Comeback weekend, come back to school weekend? I think so.
I don't know.
You got both mom and dad coming.
You bring a lot of parents.
Yeah, you sometimes get grandma in the mix. Ma Dukes is in the mix. Pa Dukes is in the mix. Baby bro or baby sister's in the mix when the kid goes to college.
I don't know.
Like you're saying, your parents didn't take you to college? They gave you a stick and a handkerchief to wrap your belongings in and to carry them down the eastern seaboard from Portland, Maine to Savannah College of Art and Design?
More or less.
They did not do that.
Well, when
your parents are watching right now.
When I first went to college, my first year was at USC.
Okay, and you were in Portland, Maine when you were living?
Yeah.
So you went across the country and they said, here's 18-year-old Judah, here's your stuff in a backpack, go on this plane and go to college in Los Angeles?
I flew on a plane alone and had my suitcase, and it was, I have to say, a pretty scary time. But,
I was going to say, weren't you scared?
Yeah, it was pretty freaky, but I made it to college and found my dorm and...
Stay there for 3 semesters?
Stayed there for 1 year.
Well, 2 semesters. And then you came back and went to Savannah College of Art and Design.
Came back, took a year off or so, took a year or two off, then...
Where do they send you to SCAD in a Greyhound? With a backpack?
Close.
Did they come with you? Did they come with you?
No, they didn't.
They did not come with you?
My friend and I drove down.
I just want to give you a hug right now. Why did they come with you?
That was 20 some odd years ago. I don't remember the specifics of why they didn't fly with me to California.
Lauren puts on the feed here, my sibling always came for move-in weekend, as did parents. My brother came with me to move-in weekend, as did my parents. I'm going to say move-in weekend a clear-cut 2 slot.
Okay.
Clear-cut 2 slot here. But here's the topic, though. As the businesses are getting peppered with customers this weekend, it left Judah and I asking this question. What neighbor is the best neighbor for trickle-over business for a mom and pop? So if you're launching a brick and mortar, if you're a mom and pop and you're going to say, hey, I'm open for business in Central Virginia, in Charlottesville, and Albemarle County. What neighbor do you want right next to you that's going to cause trickle-over business for your mom and pop?
Find a McDonald's.
You say McDonald's?
Yeah.
You say McDonald's over Chipotle? What we won't put on the list is Starbucks, right?
I don't. I put Starbucks close up to McDonald's.
The traffic impact we talked about around the Christian's Pizza that's coming for 5th Street Extended. And we talked about how the Starbucks, where 5th Street Extended, there's going to be a Christian's Pizza next to it. And we talked about how the traffic associated with that Starbucks could be a wrinkle or could negatively impact the Christians from a traffic standpoint.
That's a very,
You're saying that's specific to that shopping center?
I think it's part of the issue with Charlottesville.
What does that mean?
It means there's no easy way to get anywhere. Like, who's walking to that Starbucks?
Well, no one's walking to that Starbucks.
Exactly.
It's off a 55-mile-an-hour road.
Exactly.
So what are you saying?
I'm saying the type of, that's not a good example of talking about a small business and what the best place to be next to would be for them.
Okay, if you owned a small business in this area and you had a brick and mortar location,
I would not want it to be out at the butt end of Fifth Street.
that's the urban ring of town. You have big time neighborhoods around it and a lot of density.
But like I said, nobody is walking.
How many brick and mortars are prioritizing walkability with customers? I mean, the only ones are what, downtown?
Right. You're making my point for me.
So then who would be the neighbor you would want?
I would want a McDonald's or something, but I would want it in a place where people can actually walk around.
The McDonald's in the area don't have walkability. To play devil's advocate with you.
Well, so if we're specifically talking about Charlottesville, then maybe maybe it's different. But Charlottesville's an odd duck anyways.
It is an odd duck. How
I
about
mean,
Wegmans?
What?
How about Wegmans as the best neighbor possible for a small business? Wegmans or Whole Foods? You got deep-pocketed customers going into Wegmans or Whole Foods.
Yeah, in Charlottesville, maybe. In another city where there's a bit more walkability, a bit more maneuverability for people that don't have cars, I would say it depends on the setup.
How about Bodos? Let's say non-union Bodos, as opposed to union Bodos. The non-union Bodos as your neighbor.
Would that be a good neighbor?
Because the union Bodos, you'd have to worry about the union Bodos spilling over to your staff and influencing them behind the dumpsters when they're chain smoking their Camels. I'd say non-union Bodos would be a good neighbor.
Yeah, I think in the right spot it could be good. Again, I think a lot of this is dependent on how many people can actually walk there. Like if you're relying on a Bodos, and I just see a lot of people stopping at Bodos specifically for what they want at Bodos and moving on. I don't see it as like hey, let's, it's like Barracks is a great
good one.
Is a great example because
you can park and walk.
For instance, I might feel like going to Five Guys, and once I'm there, I'm like, oh hey,
for some burgers and fries.
Yeah.
Okay.
And once I'm there, I'm like, oh hey, I remember there's something I need to get at Michael's, and then I'm like, oh well, I'm a few doors down from the bookstore, and then whoever's with me is like, oh wait a minute, I really need to pick up a shirt or a pillow or something, down at the, there are lots of places to shop, and once you're there, there are reasons to walk around and visit other places. You're laughing, but this is what makes money for companies.
So someone goes, give me some burgers and fries and a large soda. Oh, I need to get John Grisham's latest novel. I need to go to Michael's to get those styrofoam spheres because I need to make a solar system for a school project that evening.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to go buy a local pillow from the Virginia shop. And then I want to close it down with a bottle of bourbon from the ABC store.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not saying that everybody.
It's efficient
I'm
shop.
not saying that everybody that goes into Barracks is going to do that, but there is the opportunity, and there is a lot less of that opportunity if people are driving down 29 and they pull into Bodos specifically to get a bagel sandwich, and there's nowhere.
You want to get a bacon, egg, and cheese on Route 29 Bodos, and then go have a stay at the old English Inn on a Tuesday. Enjoy a little trickle over stay at the English Inn. Okay, maybe they're not going to do that. But I mean, the English Inn's not getting a lot of trickle over from Bodos. Maybe Preston Bodos with the writing workshop house, the writer house that's right next door, getting a little trickle over exposure. But I would think that people would want to capitalize on the non-union Bodos Bagels as a potential neighbor. If you're a mom and pop. All right, before we get off this topic.
It's not a bad idea. But,
no one really is doing that.
But Charlottesville is just set up in a very strange way.
Kevin Yancey agrees. Amen, Judah. Charlottesville hasn't been able to draw straight Straight Street for decades, and he says walking Fifth Street Station or walking Fifth Street is like playing a game of Frogger.
Yeah.
Yeah, that road is a nightmare. I would not want to cross that road on foot. That is playing Frogger.
And 29 is even worse.
29 probably is worse.
Yeah.
29 probably is worse. Fifth Street's probably right there.
And then
another scary road is High Street. I see parents pushing strollers down High Street. They're white knuckling the stroller grip for fear of Johnny or little Sally in the stroller getting hit by a car on High Street.
You're talking about
between Fabio's and Old Martha Jeff. That little area is Frogger.
Yeah, I guess the sidewalks are a little hit or miss, either there or not in that area, which can be concerning.
Two other topics before we get Alex Urpí, the Antonio Banderas of finance. He already has comments coming in for him from John Blair, the Esquire who's watching in Stanton. We are going to ask you this question if you want to get the noodling. Is that what a noodle would do?
Yeah, that works.
Get a noodling? Are we at the question's going to be, are we at the bottom here for stocks? John Blair, the fabulous Esquire, says this to get the noodling. I'd be cautious on calling a market bottom right now. Two things: the Fed's QE purchases of bonds and next month. That has the potential to raise interest rates higher. Also, the cost of diesel keeps rising. That directly impacts the price of transported goods. If inflation is persistent, the Fed has indicated it will continue aggressively raising interest rates. As long as interest rates keep rising, I find it difficult to think we've seen a bottom. Just my 2 cents for Alex right there. Alex Urpí, about 60 seconds away. Two other topics quickly. The University of Virginia and Tennessee, the Volunteers, are going to play each other in the 2023 college football opener for both teams. The 2023 opener will be held September 2nd in the Music City at Nissan Stadium. So that's a big-time home opener at a neutral site for Tony Elliott's Virginia football team, September 2nd at Nissan Stadium, playing the Tennessee Volunteers at the Southeastern Conference. And lastly, huge holder of Apple stock, yours truly. Apple, like a lot of big tech, is getting hammered, or has gotten hammered in 2022, at least to this point of the year. But it's an innovation out of the Apple camp. Apple is now including with software updates captions on the phone. So when you're on FaceTime, or you soon will be on FaceTime, you will see captions. Someone's talking with you on the phone. If you're hard of hearing, or you're in a spot where you cannot turn the volume up because you don't have your earbuds and you don't want other people hearing your conversation, you can now FaceTime with people, and captions will show up on the phone during the call on both iPhone, iPad, and Mac computers. That's dynamite, man. It's absolutely dynamite. Apple continues to innovate, and having captions on screen during streaming services, FaceTime calls, and other video conferencing just shows Apple's commitment to continuing to innovate with its hardware and software. So I find that to be incredibly inspiring from Apple. Why don't we get
their door detection feature looks pretty interesting too.
I want to hear about that feature as we get Alex on set, as we set up a 3-shot. You could go studio camera. Why don't we go studio camera first? What intrigued you about that, the door detection feature, Judah?
I mean, it's similar to what you're talking about in the form of innovation, and it looks like it's a feature that's going to be there to help blind or low vision users who are unfamiliar with an area. So not only will it tell them, hey, there's a door, but it'll also let them know if the door is open or closed, whether it can be opened by pushing, pulling, or turning a knob. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
I like it. I like everything that's coming out there. So let's get to stock surging today with the Antonio Banderas of finance, Alex Urpí, CEO of Emergent Financial Services. Why are they, I mean, we've had volatility to say the least. Today, across the board, we have green. Folks are seeing maybe some bargains and some value here after sell-offs for weeks. Why are stocks surging today, Alex?
To be honest, Jerry, a little heads up, if my voice is hoarse, I had a fantastic time at my brother's wedding.
You partied.
And I partied, and you know how they say when you blow out your voice box, you're supposed to not talk for 24 hours? Well, the family was still here the next day, so I talked again. So that's why
you like to talk.
I like to talk. So unfortunately, I haven't done what you're supposed to do and not talk, so I just keep getting more and more hoarse. But stock-wise, it's interesting. I think a little comfort from the sign that retail sales were still, there was a 0.9% increase in retail sales. So sort of a sign that consumer spending has not yet been, negatively impacted by inflation to the point of decreasing. In other words, it may be not growing as fast as you would like to see, but we haven't seen a decrease in consumer spending, so a negative number there despite inflation. Today, it's interesting, most of the market's up. You have a couple companies that had bad numbers, including Walmart, so Walmart's down a little bit. But for the most part, a lot of companies seem to have had good numbers, market recovering a little. In terms of bottoming, that's always such a difficult call. I will say it's interesting, we did my father and I looked at a study earlier this year that showed that most of the time when you have a negative first quarter, as we did in 2022 here, the rest of the year is actually positive, most of the time. So obviously it's hard to know what's the time that won't be the case. You can certainly, as Mr. Blair said, you can certainly see some signs out there that would point we're not necessarily out of the woods yet. On the other hand, you could make the argument, well, the market already expects 8 Fed rate hikes. Is that already priced in? So in other words, the impact of an increase in inflation, in an increase in interest rates, the impact of an increase in interest rates is only significant on the market if it's an unexpected one. But if I tell you today with a magic crystal ball, there's going to be 8 rate hikes, the market's just going to go down today. And then when the rate hikes happen, there's not going to be a negative impact on the markets. So it's unexpected rate hikes that would push the market lower at this point, because the market is already pricing in, many economists already expect a significant number of rate hikes. So to that extent, you'd have to sort of see unexpected bad news or bad news in the form of inflation that continues long past when anyone is expecting it to end. So those are always the challenges with trying to time the bottom. But what's interesting about today is just goes to show you, even sometimes it's those bear markets that have some of the best returning days in the stock market over a period of time. So you can't just pull and say, bear market, I'm out completely, because you might actually miss some of the best days that there are in the markets.
Got something for us, Judah? You want to jump in here?
No, that's exactly what I told my parents the other day. They were talking about stocks and how everything is down, and I was like, yeah, well, the last thing you want to do is dump all your stocks.
You're down 15-20%.
Oh,
yeah.
Exactly.
It's like you haven't actually lost anything, and if you weren't planning on selling anyways, then why sell now? Because, as we've seen today, stocks can still go up.
The NASDAQ's in bear market territory. Mm-hmm. We got the S&P on a six-week losing streak. The Dow 7 straight weeks of losing. Today, things are positive. I'm looking at the board here.
A lot of green today.
3rd time in 4 days. Semiconductors are crushing it. AMD is crushing it. NVIDIA crushing it right now. The retail number I thought was a little bit skewed. We understand that retail sales are still happening and they came in at projected, but can't we expect the number to go up as inflation has driven up the cost of goods that people are buying?
True. You can't expect that, but at the same time, we're obviously not seeing people just stop spending entirely. If people stop spending, that number's going to go down. So the fact that people are still spending means at least it has not, remember, consumer spending is 70% of GDP. If that number turns negative, we're in big trouble. So the fact that it's continuing to remain positive is as good a sign as we can hope for, even if you're correct. I mean, it's not a fantastic sign, but it's certainly sort of assuages fears of recession for the time being.
Are we, I mean, you've given your take on this before. With the benefit of hindsight, are we going to say we're in a recession right now?
Oh, that's difficult to say. I'm not sure that we're in, because recession is defined as 2 negative quarters. We had 1 negative quarter, the result of basically imports being higher than exports, as we discussed. Probably too early for us to be able to say at this point that we're in the midst of a second negative quarter.
You were saying before the show, you said rip off the Band-Aid already with the Fed. Let's jack up the rates. Let's go from there and let's make it happen now. That's your take, Judah.
Well, my take is that I feel like we've been holding off a recession for so long that we're just like, it's like Sisyphus constantly pushing this giant stone up a hill, and I feel like we just keep prolonging the pain and leading ourselves deeper. And in fact, this is why the Fed is so deep in it. They've been not doing, Keith and some of the guests on the Real Talk show often talk about the fact that that people are now like so used to these incredibly low rates,
That's the norm.
Yeah.
It's been the norm for 20 years almost.
Yeah.
And then when it goes up to like 4 or 5, people are like terrified, and it's like, are you serious? But that's the problem, is that they've been pushing these low rates for so long that everybody thinks that this is just normal. When in reality, we're sitting, underneath this giant boulder, like propping everything up. And I'm not an economist, so I could be completely wrong. But, all these different, we keep hearing all these different things from different sectors, and I feel like they're all connected, but nobody's tying them together.
You want to add to that?
I think he's right. I mean, you could easily make the argument, and I think it's correct, that we should have seen the inflation we are seeing now a while ago. But just because of the fact of how much money the central banks of the world created out of thin air. I mean, yes, they did it $4 trillion in the pandemic. They also did $4 trillion. They went from, Fed's balance sheet went from essentially 0 to $4 trillion in 2008, 2009. And there are a lot of people, I think my dad and I would argue, that we did see inflation in 2009, 2010, 2011. It was just in the stock market, not in goods that you would go purchase in the store. And so eventually, sooner or later, you have to face the inflation that is the result of pumping too much money into the system. And we just kept doing it and doing it. And at some point, you can't keep doing it forever. And we're kind of seeing now that they can't keep doing it forever. So the question is, I think to Judah's point, do you just go 1921 depression where they killed that depression by basically jacking up interest rates, had huge unemployment for 6 months to a year, but then everything fixed and you got the roaring 20s? Or do you go 1929 depression where they tried to hold off on taking any serious moves and all you did was prolong the depression?
Yeah. And like I said, I just see so many different things from so many different sectors that seem to be pointing to the fact that everything is not okay right now. I mean, we've got shortages everywhere, as we all know. As we've mentioned, diesel prices are going up faster than gas prices, and gas prices keep hitting all-time highs. Then we've got in Virginia, I've been seeing that the rent relief programs are about to end. So, and we're already dealing with with housing issues, with no housing stock, and with rent prices going up. I'm curious if all these people that have been getting rent relief, I mean, are they going to be caught out
I mean,
when
there's-
when the
there's
rent
a lot
relief
of
stops?
A lot of evictions are being estimated on the horizon here with rent relief ending. And the concern you have, we'll take it a step further. The concern you have with rent relief ending and evictions potentially on the horizon is, I hate to say this, the demo that is getting evicted is the demo that is critically missing from the labor workforce in spaces of business like retail, food and beverage.
Most likely, yeah.
The day laborers at remodeling companies that are searching for.
Right.
So what's and I'll throw it to Alex on this, what's going to be the collateral damage of rent relief ending? Unfortunately, people are going to be evicted, and we empathize. Taking it a step further, it's going to impact the labor market locally in the areas of employment that are big time understaffed right now.
I mean, what's intriguing, right, is it depends on who's been taking advantage. I mean, you're going to have a mix, because you're going to have people that are on rent relief that literally cannot afford their rent and could not under any circumstances, and that's going to damage the labor force participation there, right? Because obviously it's hard to be in the labor force when you have no home.
Right.
Obviously, right? To the extent there are people receiving rent relief that maybe have been holding out on a job, taking a job, because they've been able to afford rent otherwise.
So you see it as the rent relief could
You
push
might have some people that
into
go back into the labor force because
good
you've
call.
been kind of getting by,
Interesting.
right, while you hold off, but then you might might have no choice but to take that $20 an hour job and not hold out for 25.
Interesting, right there. So
Yeah.
it could be. So you see that having more of a driver for enrollment in labor.
It should depend on which force is more powerful. Like, in other words, is the positive of some people entering the labor force, they will now need that income? Does that outweigh the people that leave the labor force because they lost their home and have no place to live?
What do you want to add to that before we go to inflation over here with Alex, J-Dubs? That was good.
No, those are great. Those are great thoughts, and I have no way of knowing which of those two forces is
greater.
is higher than the other. The way I see it is that it's just another factor in the ongoing, travails of not just our country but the world right now. And I think it's great that the stock market is green right now, but I think there are a lot of factors to tie into what's going on with the stock market, and to say that we think it's all over and everything is good now, I think is somewhat premature.
That was my next point. You agree with that?
It doesn't look over by any means.
Do you? Okay, that's fair. How about a follow-up question? Do you think that inflation has peaked?
I'm not entirely convinced of that.
You're not buying that argument either.
There are still a lot of, as Judah pointed out, shoes that may drop in terms of inflation. If diesel continues to rise, if the fertilizer crisis does not get solved, if you begin to have places that hold back their stock. In other words, we just saw in the last month, China is now putting limits on the fertilizer that is exporting. If a lot of nations do that, our prices then begin to go up in the United States here as well. We don't currently have the domestic production to satisfy all our needs if we can't buy from anyone else.
Yeah.
So I think you still have some issues that may cause inflation to fluctuate and perhaps go up again. It's much too early to say that. Now the interesting part, obviously, right, is we could be sitting here with an economy that's waffly for the rest of the year and yet see a stock market that goes up. I mean, unemployment and labor force participation were very bad in 2009, 2010, 2011. And we were sitting there saying, there's literally no reason the stock market should have been going up those years were it not for the fact that there was a bunch of money being pumped into the system. So depending what happens, it's entirely possible you can see scenarios whereby we're sitting here saying the economy does not look great, Fed is raising rates, why are stocks going up? And yet they may go up anyway. So it's so hard to be able to make a definitive prediction. This is so much of economics, right? You know the forces at work, you can identify the forces, what you can't identify is the magnitude. what's more powerful in terms of the impact on the stock market. So that's unfortunately where we are. We see these headwinds out there of, shortages, food, war, increasing interest rates, right? And you sit there and say,
Labor.
These are headwinds. Is their magnitude so powerful that the fact that the consumer is still spending and has pent-up demand from COVID just not able enough to overcome that? But you sit there and you see some news that people still intend to travel more this summer than they did last year, despite the fact that gas is much higher. And you sit there and say, is that powerful enough to overcome the headwinds? And we just don't know the answer to that question yet.
Alex, what do you think about the possibility of the plunge protection team having, I guess enough of an effect on the stock market that we're seeing these bounces?
In terms of just people coming in when prices don't drop?
Yeah, I was thinking that you probably know more about the PPT than I do.
So I'm not completely familiar with the plunge protection team, I'm going to be honest. I know that generally speaking, you always have big players that will go in bear or correction markets that kind of prop up the market, right? Obviously, they can't overcome just a flat out. When sales are down, companies aren't doing well, they can't overcome that.
Right.
They can overcome periods of negative sentiment and give you some good days in the midst of a bear market, but I'm not sure that they can single-handedly
turn things around
if the economy is not well and if stocks themselves have underlying struggles.
Mm-hmm.
You got Powell speaking on a panel today of journalists hosted by the Wall Street Journal. So I know much of Wall Street's following that to see if we can get any read on additional hikes. Your expectation for the next 30 days with potential hikes and what we could expect. You continue to see the chatter on CNBC that some are alluding to this now being bargain territory for stocks and potentially a bottom.
For some, it also depends on sector. You look at biotech sector as an example. Biotechnology is down 50% from the start of the year.
Semiconductors are down close to 50%.
So you sit there and say, even if there's a little, sometimes it's not even about finding the bottom, right? Even if there's 10% more to go to the bottom, that's still a lot of upside.
Yeah.
So you may sit there, you'll have some big players that will sit there and say, well, you know what? Yes. Could it be that there's another 10% to go before semiconductors hit bottom? Yes, but I'd rather take that chance than wait too long and miss this.
Yeah.
Exactly, and miss the fact that right now they are cheap. Right now biotechnology is down 50%, and you sit there and say, well, if you believe in biotechnology for the future, some people are going to buy at this price, and they say, you know what, I'll take the risk of another 10% downside because I know that 10 years from now I'm going to be glad I bought now.
And if by some chance tomorrow it pops, you don't want to miss, a 15% gain because you were afraid of a 10% loss.
Right, and what's
when
the
it's
stat,
already down 50%?
What's the stat you always give on the show
with
comeback? Give that stat. This is a great one.
This is a great one. So we found that over a 10-year period, and so this was the 10-year period ending 2020, so 12/31/2020. If you missed the 10 best days in the stock market, your annualized return, so your average return over those years, went from like 13% to 10%. So you basically lost down on 3% annually by missing 10 days of the entire 10-year period. So our point of that is it really is not about trying to time the market. What you want to just be is in the market so you do not miss out on those big days. And sometimes those really big days will happen in the midst of a bear market.
Yeah.
Those top days aren't always just, they would say like the market goes up like a escalator and down like an elevator. But in that elevator volatility period, that's when you can have those big spike days. On a slow and steady rise, you don't often have like a plus 3-4% day. But in the midst of a bear market, you can have a plus 3% day. I mean, I think the best, from my recollection, and this is just anecdotally, I think the best day in the market this year was literally the day that Russian troops entered Ukraine. And you would sit there and say, if you tried to time that, you'd get it wrong 99 times out of 100. You sit there, well, that's got to be the worst day of the year.
Yeah, and I think like Citibank, I think they've been one of the worst banks. They've lost like 40% in the last year or something. And I think I read that what's his name?
Warren Buffett.
Yeah, Warren Buffett just bought a pretty big stake, and it went up 8%.
That's all it takes.
Yeah, Citigroup shares jumped 8% after Buffett revealed a $3 billion stake in the company. That was 5 hours ago.
But what you were saying is exactly what I cribbed it from you guys and told my parents that over the weekend. I think it goes, time in the market is better than timing the market.
Yes, exactly.
Look at Alex
Xavier coined that one. He was.
Look at the Urpí shaping investors across Charlottesville and Central Virginia, including Judah Wickauer.
Amen to that. He was paying attention. He was a student.
Dude, we always pay attention when you're here. We always pay attention when you're here. What do you make of Money Magazine, UVA 3 value, the third best value of any university in the country?
It's good to see. I mean, we've been at the top. I'm pretty sure UVA has been at the top of those lists for a while now in terms of value. I mean, we don't always rank like number one college period, but in the value lists, UVA always ranks pretty high. I think it has a good, particularly in-state, right? It has a good combination of prestige school with not crazy unaffordable like an Ivy League school prices. So you have that good mix. And obviously, I mean, I had it up to me, to be honest, I myself didn't know about that they will pay your tuition.
Right.
If you will fall under the 80,000.
Under 80K a household. Pay your tuition and fees, not room and board.
Which is pretty nice. I'm pretty sure median, isn't median in Albemarle around 80?
Charlottesville City median household is 111,000.
Oh, it's down. Oh, wow.
Yeah, Charlottesville City,
okay.
111K median, which is I found
that's a
startling number.
That's a very high number.
Startling number. So number 1 is University of Michigan, best value. 2, UNC Chapel Hill. 3, right here, Charlottesville, the University of Virginia. 4, best value, Money Magazine, Massachusetts Maritime Academy. 5, best value, Virginia Military Institute in Lexington. Wow. VMI, 5. Georgia Tech, 6. University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, 7. University of Florida, the Gators, 8. University of California, Irvine, 9. And University of California, Davis, 10 slot. That's the top 10 right there. Washington and Lee checks in at 11. That's a private school.
I'm surprised.
So 3 of the top 11 are Virginia schools. Another indication, I've had this conversation, Virginia Tech is 22. So 4 of the top 22 are Virginia schools right there. Another indication, one thing, a conversation I've had with my better half, our son, staying in state.
Oh, yeah.
Staying in state. And Alex is very much a champion of Piedmont to UVA.
Yes, I am very much in favor of in-state. If you're going the 4-year college route, right? I know some people do trade schools and so forth, and I definitely don't discourage that. If you're going the 4-year college route, in-state tuition, PBCC or community college guaranteed admission to state schools. And literally, you get a great education at an affordable price with smaller classes. You check one box, and you have the world's most stress-free college application period. I had no worries, because once I checked that box, you're in, and you're paying in-state tuition.
Bodos is asking people to wear red on Wednesdays.
The union.
The union.
I would imagine Bodos
Not that.
Oh, no, I was going to say, it's not Bodos.
The union is asking people to wear red on Wednesdays into the Bodos on the UVA corner. Alex Urpí, will you be wearing red on Wednesdays at Bodos?
Probably not.
Probably not. Will you be wearing the, what was it called, the hat that you're wearing?
The deer stalker.
The deer stalker hat.
That's a maybe. I have to go maybe find
the
one.
Sherlock Holmes hat.
If I can figure out where you actually buy those anymore. I don't think I've seen one in a Men's Warehouse recently.
Judah's going in with the deer stalker hat, the Sherlock Holmes magnifying glass, and the brown rain jacket. You're going to go there. You want to get down to the bottom of why they're unionizing, which I think is a good question.
Yeah, it's always a good question.
What's on the brain about this topic? We've touched on this in the past.
Yeah, so the challenge always with collective bargaining is, especially with a small business like this, is it's kind of a game of chicken.
Yeah.
In the sense of, can you drive the business to the point of concessions without driving the business to the point of saying, I'm done with you guys.
Yeah.
Especially in this environment, we've seen a lot of companies just kind of call it quits, and we're sitting there saying, well, you weren't, in other words, between the challenge of finding people and the environment we're in, they were kind of people, we suspected, right, we've been surmising on the show that a lot of owners are like, you know what, it's just time for me to move on, sell my business.
I'm seeing that.
Go from there.
We're in that space.
So, I mean, it's can you get your concessions without basically driving the business owner to say, you know what, I'm done with you guys, you have annoyed me.
Not worth it.
To the point, that it's not worth it dealing with you anymore. And that often depends on what the concessions are. I mean, I don't know enough about it. Is it poor working conditions? Do they want some kind of change in their hours? Do they want higher wages? Do they want more benefits? I haven't looked into it enough to be able to say what their specific demands are.
If you're Bodos, do you go the way of the automated kiosks, McDonald's? I mean, you go to the McDonald's on Pantops. I take Trey, our son, for breakfast on Sundays, and he loves the sausage biscuit. So oftentimes we'll go to McDonald's. They are operating that location with a skeleton staff.
Mm-hmm. You can order on an app and then just go pull into the app spot and they bring your food out to you.
Yeah.
Well, but if it's the kitchen that's
Kitchen's
pushing
different.
The unionizing effort, then you can't.
It's different with kitchen.
Don't solve your problem.
Yeah, but they could potentially some front of the house.
Yeah, if the front of the house is,
Three Notch has got a freaking robot delivering food to tables now.
I saw that.
Three Notch in X Park. Did you see that?
I have not seen the robot.
Is delivering food to tables. I mean, we got to be careful.
Is it like a walking robot?
It's
Is it
like
a rolling robot? I mean, those tables are pretty tall.
It's like R2-D2, but he's got like a very flat head where you can put trays on it, and the robot literally goes at like the speed of a turtle.
Yeah.
But still gets it done.
I mean, you don't want it to trip.
You don't want to go super fast that it's tripping like grandma going to the bathroom over there. But it's delivering food to the tables now. Is that the next step as Bodos manages collective bargaining on the UVA corner? And anyone who's in the food and beverage game locally has got to be following this closely.
And let's face it, Bodos is kind of your ideal.
I mean,
I mean, you just click the bagel, click the top.
On the cashier, on the right, yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
It's the easiest.
It's not exactly like a rocket science or really difficult, preset meals. You can literally just press what you want in your sandwich.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's you want a challenging cashier setup. Look at what Chick-fil-A's got. They got teenagers inhaling carbon monoxide on lines, standing outside taking orders in the line.
Well,
outside.
Which then you want. I mean, is Chick-fil-A paying them something or do we providing something that Bodos isn't, such that it's more attractive?
Or is it the influence of the UVA corner location and higher education at UVA, with many of the Bodos staff members being students at the university?
Yeah.
Is that what's happening?
And don't forget, I mean, if you have as a business, you have higher fixed costs, namely rent on the corner. You're going to try to save on the variable cost, which is your labor.
Right.
You're going to try to save on. I mean, you can't change the price of the cost of goods sold, right? So you can't change the price of the ingredients to go into the bagel. You can't change the rent. So really, I mean, the only thing left is you change your prices, which you really do.
How much higher can you go for a bagel sandwich?
Exactly. Or you change your
labor.
Your labor costs.
I mean, we may be seeing the start of kiosks and robots at the Bodos chain that has become beloved by
That's why I say
community.
it's a game of chicken, right? Because the game of chicken, right? You're both driving the cars. There's the cliff at the edge, and you're betting that the other guy turns his wheel and gives up before you both go over the
If
edge.
I'm ownership by close of business Friday, I have R2-D2 delivering Bodos cream cheese bagels to people waiting in that restaurant. I literally would have some kind of robot delivering food to people in that restaurant, and the staff would be like, oh my gosh. This is what's going to happen to us if we push even further.
Or develop an app.
Yeah. Dan, unless you're the chef.
Unless you're the chef, yeah. The app development would be a good idea. Kind of like what Roots has done, where they have a new pickup spot for those salad bowls on the UVA corner.
Okay.
They have the restaurant where you order, and then they also have a place where you pick up food that you've ordered through the app. It's completely separate from the restaurant.
Interesting.
It's absolutely brilliant.
I mean, it's essentially the Luce Pasta
It's the Luce Pasta model.
I mean, there is no restaurant. It's a window.
Yeah, there is no, exactly right. Today, Manana, this Thursday, what do you got for us?
Today, Manana, we're going to be joined by a local small business owner.
Ooh.
She is Amanda from Grubby Girl Soaps.
Okay.
He's going to join us and talk with Xavier and I just a little bit about her business, how she started it, and so forth. And then Xavier and I will probably do a little bit of finance talk, especially in a busy week with a lot going on. Just sort of running through our thoughts, what we're seeing, what Xavier's seeing. A little bit of kind of what we've covered today, but a little more in depth into Xavier's mind of what you do in these situations and what he's seeing in the markets.
James Watson, yes, that robot at 3 notches is pretty impressive. I've seen it firsthand. It's making moves. Today, Manana airs Thursdays at 10:15 a.m. on the I Love CVille Network, presented by Emergent Financial Services. Did the wedding with your hermano, Nicholas, go very well?
It was a very beautiful time.
Was it a great party?
It was a great party. I mean, anytime you bring in Italians from New York, it's a great party.
Did anyone get a little too rowdy, or was everybody?
No.
Everybody was in
Italians are more fun than rowdy, I would say.
Okay.
Like they more like it's loud in the sense of like if you're sitting down at your table, you can expect that at some point the chain of dancing people will come by, pull you out of your chair. And
the conga line.
Oh yeah, we do like at least 3 times,
Okay.
3 or 4 times.
Nice.
You do the line, and you will be pulled out of your chair and be like, come on. So it was a lot of fun.
Was Xavier leading the conga line?
Oh, was he leading it?
I could say Xavier leading
He's
the
been,
conga
yeah,
line.
he's
I
usually
could-
at the front of the conga line
Yeah.
somewhere.
I could
and
see
then
Nicholas
he definitely
leading
will go
the
low.
line.
You know the songs we gotta like really go low at the what's it called
Limbo, yeah.
Yeah, you can always find Xavier doing something like that. He's
Really?
Did you see Xavier
Xavier's
at
good at
he's
the.
done his
He's
he
good
can
at
go
the
low.
limbo?
He can go low, getting back up on his knees is a different story. But he can go low.
He can go low. I love it. I love Xavier, guys.
Impressive.
Thursdays, 10:15 a.m. Today, Manana.
I'm expecting to see pictures.
Are we going to see him on Today, Manana?
Judah wants evidence. I'll have to see if I can get them. I'll have to. Nick's on his honeymoon, so I'll see when he gets back.
The CMO's on his honeymoon.
The CMO is on his
Nice.
honeymoon.
In the
so I'll have
Northeast,
to-
right?
In the Northeast, he's enjoying his honeymoon. So Xavier and I are managing.
Where in the
Today
Northeast?
Manana. So I think
They did a
yeah,
crawl.
they're gonna do like a day or two in a lot of the little sea
Wow.
towns and so forth. Really enjoying himself, and then when he gets back, I'll be like, pictures.
Yeah.
Judah wants pictures. Judah wants photographic evidence.
For
that
Today,
Xavier
Manana.
can
I would love to
dance.
see photographic. I would love to see that. That's a
Xavier
segment waiting to happen.
Go lower than anyone else in the limbo.
That's a segment waiting to happen. Guys, watch the Thursday show. It's absolutely dynamite. They do a heck of a job championing small businesses and offering approachability and clarity and knowledge to finance. Emergent Financial Services and Today Manana, Thursdays at 10:15 a.m. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, guys. Always fun to be on.
I was absolute blast. Always enjoy Alex Urpí. Judah, you were on point. Really doing a hell of a job. I sincerely mean that. For Judah Wickower and Lee Elberson, my name is Jerry Miller, and this is the I Love CVille Show. Friend of the program, Lee Elberson, is confirmed tomorrow at 12:30.
Nice.
So Judah, 12:30 tomorrow, we will have Lee Elberson.
Always
on the
learn
I
a
Love
lot
CVille
from
Show.
watching. Lee.
Excellent.
Lee is on point.
He's one of the smartest men.
He is absolutely
No
on
doubt.
point. So tune into tomorrow's program, and thank you kindly for joining us today. You guys have a good afternoon. Take care. Well done. Thank you, Alex.
Oh, fantastic, guys. Always love it.
We'll see you.